Okay, level 2. So what we have here is more than one probability going on at a time. So the questions will be like, what happens when we spin a spinner and flip a coin? What's the probability then? So what I'm going to get you to realize is a couple things. So in this problem, we've got a spinner that has 3 numbers and a coin that has 2 outcomes, a heads and a tails. It says make a list of the possible outcomes. So what we want to do here is, if we spin a number 1, we could land on a heads, or if we spin a number 1, we could land on a tails. The same thing could happen if I spin a 2. It could be a 2 and a heads, or a 2 and a tails. A 3 and a heads, or a 3 and a tails. So you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total outcomes. Now, you might have learned last year, or maybe you're just intuitive, is that you can see there are 3 outcomes on the spinner and 2 outcomes on the coin. If you multiply the outcomes together, 3 times 2, that gives you 6. So instead of listing all of these out, you can just multiply your 2 outcomes together to find your total. In B, it says, what is the probability that you get a 1 on the spinner along with a head? So we're going to break these up. So a 1 on a spinner along, it's a fancy word for saying and. So a 1 on the spinner is a 1 out of 3. And a heads, well, the probability of getting a heads is 1 out of 2 on the coin. So because it's an and, we want these probabilities to happen together. So we're going to multiply the 2 separate probabilities to be 1 out of 6. What is the probability that you will not get a 1 on the spinner along? Again, that's a fancy word for and, with a head. So not get a 1, that means I can get a 2 or a 3. So that's 2 out of 3 on the spinner that I want to have happen, along with a head. So a head happens 1 out of 2 times. So you're going to multiply those together. So 2 out of 6, which gives you 1 out of 3 when you reduce it. Alright, what's the probability that you will get an odd number and a tail? So an odd number is 1 or 3. So again, that's 2 things that I want on the spinner, because there are 2 numbers that are odd, out of 3 total. And then a tail happens 1 out of 2 times. So again, this is 2 out of 6, which simplifies to 1/3. So the chance of this happening together at the same time is 1/3, or 33%. Now the last one has a different word in it. It says, what's the probability that you'll get a 2 on the spinner or a tail? Now this does not say and. So I'm not doing things twice. I'm not spinning the spinner and flipping the coin. What I'm doing is just one total probability. So to get a 2 on the spinner and or a tail, there are 2 outcomes that I want, okay, that I would be okay with happening. And there are 5 total possible outcomes. There are 3 on the spinner and 2 on the coin. So that's where I got the 5 from. Okay, again, this is probability, because it says or, means I would be happy with one or the other. So there are 2 outcomes I'd be happy with out of 5 total.